Bruntz, you feeling okay? You sound like the voice is bothering you a little bit. You doing all right?
Well, Memphis got
yeah,
here.
No.
Did Beale Street get you?
We didn't get to Memphis until about 1 last night, so I'm a little tired. But I'm good.
And you drove too, right? How inconvenient but typical Nebraska fashion was it when you just book a trip? You're like, hey, we're going to Memphis. We're going to cover this. We know you got to do pro day. We're going to get on the road. Then everything breaks, and you're like, do you want to drive? I have some typing to do.
Like, it was funny. Like, the worst part was pro day, because it's like you're sitting there, and I mean, guys got to run routes. They got to do what they got to do. But it's like, okay, we got to move this along here, people. It's like, have we seen enough? Have we, guys doing things? No. Okay, we're going to keep doing drills. Okay.
He said no.
You weren't there to watch the UNK guys go through their paces, or
how about my favorite is, hey, Kalen and Raiola threw. I'm like, you guys will grasp at anything.
100%. You want to know how much of that I watched to watch those guys throw? More than I'm proud of.
Micah was watching it on Instagram when I picked him up from school.
More than I'm proud of, DB.
Damon,
yes.
You could. I don't want to say this out loud, but there were a lot of scouts that were watching that portion of pro day really closely. Probably not for who was catching the pass.
They weren't
watching Joshua Fleeks. Come on, man.
They weren't big Billy Kemp guys.
They were watching, I think, the passers a little bit more than the receivers. So that's just something to put in your back pocket for 3 years from now, I guess.
Here we go. How convenient. Here we go.
Yep.
Bruntz, as you're watching pro day and you're watching the entire administrative part of the university get redone in real time here, what have you learned about the new Nebraska AD Dannen in the last 24 hours?
Yeah, I'll say this. Here's what I appreciate about Nebraska, though, is like you have all of these like loose ends. They're very good about just tying things up in about like 30 minutes. Like
it kind of felt like the end of The Godfather, just taking care of all family business in one scene.
Yeah, yep, and then just fade to black. So yeah, that's kind of what I've learned in the last 24 hours. I mean, I think he's a guy that's pretty well respected. Obviously, the tenure at Washington was pretty short, but he did a lot in 5 months. I mean, he hired a football coach, fired a basketball coach, and he's a guy that knows the Midwest. I think probably more instructive about kind of what he's done is what he did at Tulane. And I don't know. I mean, you guys are probably pretty well aware that Willie Fritz is pretty well thought of around the Husker 24/7 offices. So, that hire carries a lot of weight, I think. I think Tulane's profile raised quite a bit during the time that he was there. And, I think, when you kind of, if you just kind of do like the blind resume, I think he profiles really closely to kind of what I expected Nebraska was going to pursue. I mean, I think they were searching for somebody with Midwest connections. They were searching for somebody that had Power 5, preferably, Big Ten, SEC type experience that's been at the big boy table. And, I think, this job is one that it's different than it's been at Nebraska before because of the circumstances in which Trev left. I mean, he left. He wasn't fired. And, there's not a lot of huge fires within Nebraska that he's going to have to put out right away. I mean, he's not going to have to rebuild the football program like a lot of other AD hires have had to do when they've been hired. I mean, Dennis LeBlanc has done a very good job of extending contracts in the last week. So a lot of those things are taken care of.
You just got to go raise money for a $500 million stadium project.
I mean, there's that. I mean, I think that's going to probably be the biggest question is, where is that project at now? How much do you really need to move forward with that right now? I mean, I actually thought Matt Rhule explained it pretty well, and it kind of lined up with what my dumb little brain can handle of like, yeah, it's a 100-year-old building. There's things that need to be fixed, like structurally. You probably need to have like better Wi-Fi in there so you can actually sell beer and you can actually have a a good point of system sales system. I mean, that stuff needs to be done. Like, you have to do it in 2024. But the other stuff, if I'm a new AD, the last thing I want to do is make my first interaction with a lot of people be the news that we're going to be taking your seats and you're going to be moving for, at least one season, maybe two. Like, it just, I think they need to be really careful with that portion of it. So that's the big piece. And then, of course, I mean, you've got everything else that's going around in college football, but I think at least the Nebraska stuff is on a much better footing right now than it's ever been for a new athletic director coming in. I mean, you guys can disagree with me on that, but I think a lot of the stuff that he's going to have to do is just kind of keep things going on the road that they are, while also being able to navigate all the other crap that's going on in college athletics right now.
Bruntz, from the comments you heard from Rhule, did you get the sense that this was a name that was run by him at the very least before the hire was made?
Yeah, well, they talked. Rhule said that they had talked. So
you seem to know an awful lot, right? People will tell you a lot if you just listen.
Yeah, I mean, Matt, he said he was excited about the hire. He had talked to Troy about the job. So that to me was noteworthy. And yeah, I mean, there's some history there.
Seemed to rattle off a lot of accomplishments.
Yeah, well, and just the fact that he was talking yesterday during pro day is noteworthy, right?
Yeah.
Like,
it started out with, I'm only going to give you guys 5 minutes, man. I got stuff to do. I got 5 minutes, guys. We got to go. And it turned into a little bit more than 5 minutes.
I don't know if you know, but coaches don't typically come over to the media during pro day. Like, that's not a thing.
Nope.
So the fact that he was just coming over to talk about it, and he came over to talk about it, I think it was about like 7 minutes after the release went out announcing Troy, was noteworthy as well. It was funny because I didn't get the release in my email right away. So as he's sitting there talking, I'm like, is this official yet? Like, is this how they're going to do it? But it was just my stupid email. So
Matt Rhule's just out there making official announcements for people.
Who asked the gold question when he said, "Hey, I don't want to speculate. Like, I want to talk about it unless somebody tells me it's been named." Like, who asked that follow up? Because I was like, man, you guys must really think he's on to the breaking news.
It was BC. BC was just.
It sounded like his voice, and then BC was like, "Yeah, it's understandable," or "That's cool," or "Yeah." I was like, "Oh, he chastised him."
He just asked. You got to ask, right?
Right? I mean, yeah.
But I mean, he could have said something that the news was out. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think at least from the head coach's perspective, I think it was a good hire. I think that they found somebody that kind of rattled off what Matt Rhule was wanting when he was talking the other day.
DB, do you have anything you want to ask before I get into my president conspiracy theories?
Bruntz, just one question. So as you're listening to Coach Rhule and you listen to the Board of Regents announcement on Dr. Gold, your initial thoughts were what? You knew this all along. Why now? How convenient? Like
could this have been done like 2 weeks ago?
I know you joke about your aptitude, but you and I both know that you're like president of Mensa International. So like, what were you thinking like real time as the news hits in succession?
Well, I think everybody got their act together a little bit. It's interesting. My initial thought was, well, wasn't this kind of what the previous AD probably would have wanted?
That seemed to be the prevailing notion, huh?
That was one thought. My other thought actually kind of went to the AAU stuff, because
mine too.
I mean, you hire him, it seems like you're setting the table for doing that. And I think I know a lot of people roll their eyes about the AAU stuff, but it's a big deal. And if they can get that figured out, that would be a really big win for the university. So
do you know why why people thought it wasn't a big deal, Bruntz? I'm convinced of this. It's because Nebraska waived their status. That's why we
Yeah.
convinced ourselves it wasn't a big deal. If any other time we were the only something to not be part of something, we would be in an uproar.
Yeah. No, I mean, it helps you sleep at night when you say that, well, you don't want me, well, fine. I mean, it's a blow to the ego, but it matters. And especially with
sounds like divorce.
Yeah.
Not that me and DB would know anything about that.
So, but I mean, you're like if you're looking big picture, right, in college athletics right now, like you don't want to have any reason why you would not be part of the big boy table, right?
Yep.
Like you want to have that buttoned up, and that's kind of where my mind that and just like why that, like why are we doing this all today? Like like it just felt like we could have had this wrapped up a little bit ago. But I mean, I get that's how searches work. It takes time, and this really actually wasn't a slow one in terms of how these usually work. But that was my thought was, well, I mean, he's been known, he's been there, but I think he'll do well. I mean, I from talking to people that know him, he's a hard worker, and I think kind of having that person that's been at UNMC and understands UNL, I think that'll help a lot.
Bruntz, I'm going to give you 3 scenarios here that I think are possible for the timing and name of the priority candidate for president in Dr. Gold. You tell me which one you think is the most plausible, okay?
Okay. Look at my tinfoil hat on here.
It's not.
Hey, we almost. Well,
I
have a super big head. Otherwise, I would give you mine, Bruntz, because I keep one on the coat rack.
I think these are.
Okay.
I think these are plausible scenarios. So maybe they are, maybe they aren't. Okay. Number 1, the Regents. We're making the assumption that Dr. Gold is the candidate that Trev wanted, which I think is accurate. We can't know for sure, but these are all under that assumption. Okay. Number 1, the Regents did this as a giant bleep you to Trev. That's first scenario. Number 2, this was always going to be the decision, but Trev was trying to exert more influence over the process, and the Board of Regents didn't like that, and he didn't like getting rebuked. That's number 2.
Okay.
Number 3, the governor's call to action got the Board of Regents butts into gear, and they made a decision. Which of those do you think is the most plausible?
I think probably I would say a mix of 2 and 3. Can that be true?
So Trev trying to exert influence that they didn't want him to have, and the call to action kind of sped up the timetable.
So what's the influence? Like that he didn't? There was pushback with the South Stadium project.
No, that he wanted a bigger influence on who the person was.
What if
over the process? Or what did you mean? What did you mean, Bruntz?
Well, I think probably there was a little bit of interest there. I'm not saying he was like trying to get the pick, but I think like there was probably with the South Stadium stuff needing somebody there to kind of get things going long term. But I think the call to action, I mean, I think that I'm just totally speculating here, and I'll do it really quickly. Like it just feels like it was okay. We've got these internal candidates. We feel good about this one. Maybe not as excited as you would maybe want to, I guess, in a search like that. But I mean, I think you had a really solid choice kind of staring you in the face right there. So maybe it's like, look, okay, let's just do this, because I think there's a lot of positives there. Because my understanding was it was a little deadlocked. I mean, you needed somebody to switch. And,
yeah, you're talking about the 2 of the 5 votes originally for Gold.
Yeah, well, and you needed also to. I mean, the other option is the failed search, and I don't know that was.
I'm with you.
Really a good option there for anybody. So
I'm with you, because as I kind of look at like and I hate to bring in politics, but the political climate of it is Dr. Gold appears to be somebody that may stand in some opposition with some of his views. So maybe it wouldn't have been viewed as favorably as somebody that's going to do his own thing, because He appears to be a very independent thinker, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, it's probably a little bit too of like, well, you know who you know, right? Versus like, if you're bringing in somebody from the out, I don't know. I mean, I just think, I think there's also maybe a sense of like, okay, well, how long term of a decision is this? Like, I don't know if that factored in at all, but that, like I said, that's just me speculating.
Let me ask you this, Bruntz. Just on kind of a humbug, as you're kind of looking at the landscape going forward with what you think may happen, take these into account: NIL, in-house, out-of-house, super conferences, and Nebraska's actual play on the football field. Are they better today on March 21st than they were on March the 15th?
Play on the football field, seat at the big boy table. What was the other one? There was one that the NIL going in.
Like the whole move. And I say those particulars, generally speaking, about the way college athletics is moving.
Yeah. That's a tough question because, and I don't think we can answer that yet. Like, from reading what Troy said at when he was hired at Washington, I think he understands where things are headed.
Yep.
And as much as I understand there's frustrations with Trev right now, but he had a really good kind of read, I think, on where things were going really quick.
Yep.
And early on, especially with the NIL stuff. Like I think he understood that it's trending towards things going in-house. Like that you're probably going to have some kind of revenue sharing there.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he, for whatever faults people see in him, I think he understood the big picture pretty well. And I'll be eager to kind of see how that changes. There's a lot of what you just asked is kind of like, well, we don't know. And I know I'm supposed to have an opinion on it, but I mean, we won't know for 6 months.
All right. Well, let me throw in one more thing. What if the stadium expansion and that renovation project is quelled for the time being? Is that a pro or a con going forward? Because let's not act like that wasn't a big part of what I think was bugging Trev too.
No, I think if you pump the brakes on that a little bit, I think that's okay.
Okay.
Like like I said earlier, I mean, I think you can. There's things that need to be fixed. Like, and it's kind of like you have a house project, and you're like trying to figure out, like, okay, I'm going to redo my patio. What can I really do here, and like blow this thing out of the water, or like what really needs to be done right now?
Mm-hmm.
And I just think it just felt like that project was a little bit ahead of where a lot of people were at with everything else at the university. Like you have a practice facility that's closer to getting done but not done yet. They've done some stuff in the stadium already. Like just that you were doing it in the climate of budget cuts at the university. It just felt soon. And I don't know if that gets any better if you do it 2 years from now or if you push it further down the road. But to me, I've kind of been in the camp. You do what you have to do, and then you see about the other. Set yourself up for the stuff later on. Like I just don't know that this is a perfect time to be going around asking for money, especially you guys know this. I mean, if you get a couple good seasons of football, people are going to be.
It's a lot easier after 2 9-win seasons.
How much do you need?
Yeah.
How much do you need?
It's a lot easier sell after a couple 9-win seasons, right, Bruntz? Like it's an easier pitch.
It's an easier door to get in if you're doing it after 2 really good seasons, for example, with some good momentum. I mean, that was kind of my thought, was like it just, you needed to get the product on the field right before you start getting the product around the field changed, I think. So that's where I'm at.
President of Mensa International, if you could ask your guy Fetters a question this morning, what would it be?
I would want to know about the search for dead fish. I would want to know how that was. That was a weird time. Like, it was a weird time.
And he nailed it. Right?
Yes. Well, I mean, he got a guy. He got a guy with the record. That's good.
He got a guy.
Thanks, Bruntz.
That's Michael Bruntz, Husker 24/7. Enjoy Memphis, Bruntz.
I'll try. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, buddy.